Welcome to our community building event. We will start off with our community agreements. There's a couple of them, but here we just have step up and then step back to give others a chance to voice their opinions. Also, we want to give people the benefit of the doubt. So, um, in our current system, we always are doubtful and suspicious of people, but we want to lead with caring and compassion because this is a caring and compassionate circle community that we're trying to build, and also in all our actions, that's what we're trying to do. In the Poor People's Campaign, we're fighting for our dignity and our humanity, and so we need to practice that. It's really, really difficult to do, but we're going to do our best, and we're all in the process of trying to do that. So we're going to give people the benefit of the doubt, and we're going to take turn. If we're speaking in a group, we will have a breakout group. So just be sure to wait to listen for understanding and not for how to respond, because we want to listen, actively listen, so that so that we understand what the person is saying, and we can reflect a little bit and then respond. So this is a space for caring and compassion, and that's how we develop um, courage to speak what needs to be spoken. Can go to the next slide, please, Sylvia. So my name is Ramita. I organize in the North Country. I'm also the one of the tri-chairs of the state. New York State Poor People's Campaign. I use she, her pronouns. Um, right now, actually, I'm in New Orleans at a conference. I'm an educator in the North Country. I live in Canton, New York, which is half an hour south of the Canada border. Um, so I was born in apartheid South Africa, so I understand colonization in quite a different way, and I am always aware of how it's present and how it shows up in our day-to-day life. Um, so I had an awareness of the injustices right from middle school. I decided to study engineering as a protest to this invisibility and dismissal of my humanity. Um, So coming from South Africa, where discrimination was the law of the land, and then here in the United States, from South Africa, the United States was seen as this land of freedom and equality and opportunity, the, which is one of our exports. The United States export is this idea of a land of freedom. So after several years of living here, I realized that that wasn't the case. So that's what brings me here to the Poor People's Campaign. And when I learned about a meeting that was happening at the church, at one of the local churches in the North Country, I was hooked once I learned about the interlocking injustices that we're going to be talking about today. And so I'm very passionate about the work. Um, um, just briefly mention the interlocking injustices of the systemic racism. This is so the system that keeps so the systems that keep racism in place, the systems that keep poverty in place, that keep people in poverty, the ecological devastation, um, the military and war economy, and the false religious narrative. So these are all interlocking. And in all organizing that I have seen, apart from our sister organizations, which we will talk about at the end, in all the organizing that I have seen, people or groups generally focus on one aspect of this. But what I like about the Poor People's Campaign is that we're saying these are all interlocking. So And for those of you who know me, I'm always talking about the systems, always pointing out the systems. So there's so much that there's so many ways that we don't even realize how the system has filled us with false narratives. And so today at the workshop that I just came from, the presenter had a slide up that said, if opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. And people might think that this is great, but a great motivating idea. But for me, the activist in me saw, well, if opportunities, if you think that opportunity is not knocking, you are not prepared to hear, right? Whatever society has held you back, that you cannot hear the knocking. And then to build a door, you need all kinds of resources to build a door. You don't just build a door. You need to have skills. You need to have the money to buy the pieces. And so there's just so many things. You need to have the time. You need to have a bunch of resources to build a door. So it's just things like that that people will repost or quote without the thinking about all of that. So these are the things that I'm passionate about. Everything about the Poor People's Campaign, I'm passionate about. This is a group of caring and nonviolent activists, um, and they're caring. And I have seen this in New York State in our group across many situations, in word, deed, actions, and interactions with each of us. There's always caring and compassion. Um, and what I also love about the Poor People's Campaign is this is not about left or right, Democrat or Republican, but about right and wrong. Everybody in, nobody out. And when we lift from the bottom, everybody rises. So the next slide. Um,
Okay, I will share it. Um,
so we're just going to just quickly for the agenda and what we're where we're going. So um, we're going to look at the history of the Poor People's Campaign and the urgency of the moment. Pam is going to talk to you about that. We're going to have a breakout group, and then we'll talk about the strategies that we imply, shifting the narrative. Sylvia's going to do that. I'll talk about building unity and leadership among the poor and the dispossessed, and then Pam will talk about political engagement. Then we'll look at the structure of the Poor People's Campaign, and then we'll take you to our link tree and show you some of the work that we're doing and where to find the information. And then Pam will do that, and then Sylvia will talk to you about the upcoming events and contacts. Okay, so Pam will lead you with the history.
Thank you, Ramita. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm Pam. I'm very happy to be here to see friends and to meet some new friends as well. Just briefly, why I'm here. I'm a nurse. I grew up in Pittsburgh, but I live on Long Island now. And a couple of years ago, probably like 3 or 4 years ago now, maybe even a bit longer, just one Sunday morning, I was reading the newspaper, and there was an interview with Reverend Barber, and I thought, like, oh, that sounds like an interesting person. I'd heard a little bit about him, so I read it, and in there was a quote that he said that much of human suffering is manufactured, and for some reason that just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I could not get that out of my head. I just kept thinking about it. And I learned a little bit more about the Poor People's Campaign, and I just really wanted to work with an organization that was committed to manufacturing a better world, because these are choices that we make. We could make better choices. We could advocate for better choices from our leaders. So the two pictures I have on there, the top right is Mariana, one of our dear colleagues who sadly is not with us anymore. She's just an inspiration. Many of us know her on the call today. And then the other picture was from a trip to Albany that we took, and was just one of my first times with the Poor People's Campaign on an excursion or an outing. And it was just inspirational and beautiful, and music and the community was just great. So that's briefly why I'm here. Sylvia, you can go to the next slide. And I will tell you a little bit. I am still learning a lot, so I have a lot to learn. But that's one thing I love about the Poor People's Campaign is it is very educational. So I have my Reverend Barber books here. I don't know if you can see them that I'm always go to and learning from. But the Poor People's Campaign arose from the civil rights movement, and there were a lot of actions to fight racism, the Montgomery bus boycott, the March on Washington, the passing of the Civil Rights Act, voting rights fights, ending or somewhat ending with the passage of the Voting Rights Act, which unfortunately, as we all know, is now decimated. The Vietnam War at that time, the divergence of funds to the war and away from programs that were intended to help people, all of this came together. And that's when Dr. King and other civil rights leaders realized that all poor people were being denied dignity and respect. And they put together the Poor People's Campaign to address that. And I'll pass it off to Sylvia now for the next slide.
Thanks, Pam. Would anybody like to read this Martin Luther King quote in 1967, from 1967? Thank you, Susan. You have to unmute yourself.
I think it is necessary for us to realize that we have moved from the era of civil rights to the era of human rights. When we see that there must be a radical redistribution of economic and political power, then we see that for the last 12 years, we have been in a reform movement, that after Selma and the Voting Rights Bill, we moved into a new era, which must be an era of revolution. In short, we have moved into an era we are called upon to raise certain basic questions about the whole society. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., May 1967.
And this slide strikes me because these words strike me because they're so relevant today as they were in 1967. Reverend Ralph Abernathy said this was to dramatize the plight of the America's poor of all races and make very clear that they are sick and tired of waiting for a better life. I'm going to introduce myself. I was drawn to, I'm Sylvia, she, her, Bronx, forever. Came into the Poor People's Campaign in 2019 after I heard Bishop Barber denouncing white Christian nationalism. In his unique way, he was telling the truth about what Christianity is all about. And I shouted, finally, to my agnostic Jewish husband. And because I was so disgusted, and I'm still disgusted that hardly anyone was speaking out against this distortion of my faith. So when I found out about PPC principal values, that sealed the deal. I had gone through poverty myself and blamed myself for the times that I'd been in poverty. So when I realized, thank you, Ramita, for being our systems person, that I was in the system and it was working exactly as it was supposed to work, that sealed the deal. And I felt liberated. It wasn't a shortcoming of mine, but a systemic problem in which the rich keep wealth because the banks were bailed out while I was working as a telemarketer, while the poor continue to be oppressed and unable to sustain wealth in spite of efforts or education. So that's my slideshow of why I'm here. That's Reverend Liz Theo Harris, and there's Bishop Barber. So did you all know, some of you already know this, that nationwide there are currently 140 million poor, low wealth people in the US, which means one emergency away from losing their house or becoming unhoused. And then there's 8.6 million people in New York who are poor or low wealth. Can I get it? Let's get 3 volunteers to read the next slide. Shall I volunteer you, or would you like to
I'll go.
raise your
This is Derek.
hand? Thanks, Derek.
New York is the most unequal state in the nation. Almost half of New Yorkers struggle to get their basic needs met.
Thank you,
New York,
Derek. And Karen, read the next one.
New York ranks first in the U.S. in extreme wealth, but has the greatest income inequality.
And one more.
Average income of the top 1% is 62 times the average income of the bottom 90%.
And we have more statistics, but I'm going to move on in the interest of time. And time is running out. I'll read this one. The world's 10 richest men more than doubled their fortunes during the first 2 years of the pandemic. 700 billion to 1.5 trillion at a rate of $15,000 per second or 1.3 billion a day. In the meantime, the incomes of 99% of humanity fell, and over 160 million more people were forced into poverty during the pandemic. Inequality is contributing to the death of at least 21,000 people each day, or one person every 4 seconds. So we say it's movement time.
Yeah.
Back in 1967, Martin Luther King Jr. identified 3 evils, and they're interlocking. The first is systemic racism. So not in an individual, but part of the culture, part of the, how was it that Reverend Paparone used to say? It's the water we swim in. It's systemic. Systemic poverty and war and the war economy that we're seeing today. Flash forward to 2018, 2019 now, the PPC, the new PPC, a call for moral revival, national call for moral revival. We have the 3 of Martin Luther King's: systemic poverty, systemic racism, militarism, and the war economy. We added ecological devastation because, as you see, the people most affected by ecological changes and changes to the environment are always the poor and oppressed, the people living on the water, the people living in the desert. And the distorted moral narrative of religious nationalism, aka white Christian nationalism, which is what we're seeing today, disguising itself as Christianity. Okay, we're going to have some breakout rooms. So this is a good number. Let me see. Okay, somebody help you do math. We'll do like 4 breakout rooms. And in the breakout room, introduce yourself and talk about the issues that you or your community face that connect to our 5 evils, right? And I would go back over them. Systemic racism, poverty, militarism, the war economy, ecological devastation, or the distorted moral narrative. And I can put that in the chat as well. Okay. And I'll put the timer on. So somebody that can do math. 4 breakout rooms?
Yeah, it'll be five people in some and 6 in others. So I think that's, if that's okay.
Oh, then let's make it a little smaller. We'll make it 5 then.
Okay.
All right.
So then we'll have 4 and 5.
Okay. All right. Here we go. All right. I'm opening the rooms. I think we have one of us each in yeah, if all the coordinators are all in one room, then find another room, okay?
Sorry, Sylvia. I accidentally exited myself from the breakout room. Can you put me back, please?
Sure.
This is Lissa.
You were, okay, you were in
I
room
was with Ramita. I saw Ramita's face, and then when I touched the screen, I realized that I wasn't joining, I was exiting.
Okay, I'm going to briefly move you to room 1 and then I'll move you to room 2. Okay. Hi, Susan. Do you want to be out of the breakout room or do you want to be in one? You could
You can,
choose anyone.
okay, let me see who has, I'll take room 3 because it doesn't have one of our regulars. Although I know.
Oh, perfect.
Hello.
Hi, Susan. Nice to
Hey.
meet you.
Hi. Uh, Let me try to get this. There we go. Okay. Uh, I would like you to introduce yourselves and let me know where you're from. Derek, I know. Sanjana, I have written uh, in response to an email that you sent to the Poor People's Campaign. And John, I don't know you. So I will introduce myself and then ask you to all introduce yourselves. I am one of the tri-chairs of the New York State Poor People's Campaign and a coordinator for the Long Island region. I do all my work online. I am actually living in Connecticut now, so not working on the ground. I help to organize events on Long Island. I just don't show up for them. So, uh, John, you want to tell us who you are and where you are and why
Sure,
you're
yeah.
here?
Yeah, John Calv. I'm in Hudson Valley in Beacon, but hoping to get back to the city relatively soon. So I've been volunteering with the Poor People's Campaign, although things have been a little more stagnant or we haven't been meeting as much over the past, I guess, few months now, Derek, it seems like.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
But so I know Derek and I know Sylvia well and Lissa, and so was hoping to kind of coordinate some of the structure around the things that we wanted to do together. And I appreciate the mission and vision of the PPC. It very much aligns with a new faith community that I'm starting as well, which is going to have some synchronicities with this. So there'll be collaboration opportunities for sure. And very interested in the great work, Susan, you've been helping to lead with the New York Health Act. I think there's a really incredible opportunity there. And that's one of the areas I think we're going to focus on, along with dismantling and abolishing ICE and all of the related parties involved and connected to them.
Right.
Great. Sanjana?
Yeah, thank you for connecting me with this space, Susan. I'm based in Bushwick in Brooklyn, and I've been in New York for about 5 years now. I work at Center for Popular Democracy in my 9 to 5, so I'm a donor organizer there, but I wanted to get more, which is a national nonprofit. I wanted to get more plugged into local New York organizing. And I second what John shared about excitement around the New York Healthcare for All work. And I was originally looking to dive deeper into either healthcare organizing or prison abolition. And a friend recommended I join one of your meetings. So that's how I ended up here.
Great. And so all three of you are New York City people. And Derek?
Hi. Yeah, we were just meeting right before you came on, and great to see you again, Susan.
Uh,
Derek Baniamisa. I've been involved with Poor People's Campaign for a number of years, having been initiated by one of the other leaders in the movement, Arelis Figueroa, to Sylvia and everyone, and coming out of Riverside Church. We haven't been meeting. I think we've taken a bit of a hiatus in terms of our PPC work. And so I'm kind of circling back to see what's going on and how my wife Karen and I can help. And in the meantime, we've been doing a lot of activism around Christian nationalism, Christian Zionism, and basically joining the movement for liberation and self-determination for Palestine. So we've been working with disciplined students from Columbia University who are looking for a place to organize and to basically express freedom of thought. And we've been working with them for the last year, doing collaborative programming, um, and just connecting people with folks in Gaza to hear what's going on in real time and just erasing the distance between here and there. Um, we've had a lot of, it's been a very interesting and busy year. The last thing we were involved with was the People's graduation, which was graduation for students around the city coming out of college and some graduate programs who basically weren't allowed to express themselves with themselves and their families during the graduation, this last spring. So that was really great. It was at St. Paul, St. Andrew's Church. Yeah, so it's great to be here and connect to everybody again. And I'm also a member of a participant in the Nonviolent Medicaid Army, Sanjana. And they are definitely looking at healthcare in a very radical way, mainly that Medicaid should be should be universal, and that healthcare is a human right. And that's very much aligned with Poor People's Campaigns and some of the things you heard from MLK. Yeah.
Yep. One of the differences, the Nonviolent Medicaid Army is closely related to the Poor People's Campaign, but they are a national organization. So their emphasis is on Medicaid for all at the national level. We
Mm.
are concentrating on the New York Health Act, and I just wrote an article. Maybe I'll send that out as my next one or put it in the next newsletter. I do something every week about the fact that we are not signed on to the Medicaid for All uh, coalition because we are promoting at this, although it's very much in line with what we are aiming for eventually. Uh, we see the New York Health Act as having a much better chance of passing in the short term.
Mm.
And just to remember that the way Canada got health care for all was because it passed in one province.
Mm.
And then the other people in the other provinces saw how well it was working and they wanted it too. And it ended up being passed nationally. Now, I'll tell you something that most people don't seem to know because it's fairly recent. Unfortunately, um, their single payer healthcare program, which was originally government run, as it should be, because it shouldn't be for profit. That's one of the things that we're fighting against, was privatized. And the quality has gone down, and people are complaining about it. And that's why the Nonviolent Medicaid Army talks about Medicaid for all. Other people are talking about Medicare for all or single payer, but they are emphasizing uh, that it must be government run, so there is no profit motive. Yeah, that's a little bit off topic, but I had to throw that in there
Thank
because the topic that we were asked to address is what do you see in your community uh, in the way of uh, the five interlocking intersectional evils that we are fighting against? Anyone want to talk about that? What you have seen?
Yeah. Basically the things I said before. I've seen it abroad in terms of our foreign policy,
Hmm.
and I've seen it in terms of suppressing people's ability to protest or even disagree publicly over here.
Hmm.
I've seen Columbia University turn from part of the community into a fortress.
Yeah.
So that's one example there. Yeah.
John?
Well, yeah, can you remind me of the five areas again? Because I know militarism is one of them, which relates to
Okay,
ICE, what I was talking about.
right. Well,
Um,
you did mention that the five are poverty, racism, ecological devastation, militarism in the war economy, and Christian nationalism or religious nationalism, because it's not always Christian, although that's what's predominant in our country right
Right.
now. And healthcare. Reverend Barber stuck healthcare in there somewhere. Uh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, I mean, I've been doing so I do content creation online, and I'm working with like a progressive Christian group. Not everybody is literally a Christian. Most everyone is, to help dismantle Christian nationalism through messaging and speaking out against it. And there's a lot of really great content going around online. What I'm wanting to focus on is how that gets projected into outward action. And so the militarism, with the Iran war, obviously Gaza, as Derek mentioned, and then what's happening now with the domestic terrorist army of ICE in this country, to me is very interconnected to poverty from two angles. One, it's oppressing and crushing immigrant families, obviously.
Mhm.
And then there's also the history of this country where you keep people desperate enough and in poverty on unlivable wages so that you can recruit them into the military and into ICE. Because not every member of ICE is a terrible person. Some of them are, of course. And so you have that aspect, and then these people are locked in through terrible contracts and are just working in the Christian nationalism sense, when I think culturally how that's influenced everything and how that's aligned with patriarchy and worshiping every false idol this country worships, from greed, power to domination to white supremacy. That's all connected in how they're using messaging to label anybody, any dissenters, terrorists, and they're creating lists. I'm sure that if I'm not on it already, I'm sure I'll eventually be on it, along with a lot of people I know, because anybody speaking out is at risk of being labeled a terrorist. And I even saw something that they're creating a list of people, anyone who's anti-fascist. Sorry, I didn't realize we only had 30 seconds. And so they're admitting that they're fascist. They're like, anybody who's
Right.
anti-fascist is going to be put on this list. And they're using ICE to carry all that out. Or at least that's what they're trying to do. They want to do.
And Jana, I'm sorry, we're running out of time. I'd love to
Yeah,
hear
sorry about
from
that. I
you.
didn't realize how much time.
That's totally okay. I'll just say I live in a very predominantly Puerto.
Whoop.
Are we recording?
Yeah,
Okay. All right, great. Yeah, now I remember. I don't know. Did we lose some people?
I feel like we got more people.
Oh, I thought we had 23 because I did the math.
Oh, good.
And now, okay, a couple of people.
Michael Marshall left, he's back, and Steve Edmondson left and is back. So I don't know how that happened.
Okay, so I hope you all had good conversations, learned about each other, which is an important step as we build community. Um, I think we'll just go into the strategies, and if we have time at the end, we can chat a little bit about, you know, what everyone thinks about the conversations or whatever. So in the interest of time, we could just go to the next slide. So in the PPC, we have strategies that, uh, okay,
Is
yeah,
it,
we all
is
had
it,
great conversations. For a moment, Sylvia, your screen showed up, so I wasn't sure. Okay, so yeah, our actions are usually guided by strategies. So our strategies involve more than doing rallies or participating in actions. It's important. The rallies and those kinds of actions are important, but we, in the Poor People's Campaign, we go a little bit further. We are a movement, not an organization, as Bishop Barber says. So what does that mean in our work? And what are our key principles and beliefs? and how do we collaborate with others to achieve these common goals? I think I'm passing it to Pam.
Yeah, thank you. So some of our specific strategies are shifting the narrative by shifting the narrator. Oftentimes the people most affected by a policy or a change are not heard of, or not heard, their voices aren't heard. Another strategy is to build unity and leadership among the poor and the dispossessed, and also to influence policies and elections. So in the next few slides, we'll talk about what this means to us, why it's important, and how do we do this in our work with PPC. So shift the narrative by shifting the narrator. As you can see, when those in struggle tell their stories, we see the crisis differently. And that's so important because stories make a difference. You can give somebody statistics and data all day, but you tell them a story and they're going to remember that. So we can also confront lies by telling stories and connecting those stories with systemic injustice. So we have, education on how to tell stories. We encourage storytelling and testimony from those in struggle. And we never give the microphone to those who already have power and a platform. Okay, and I'll pass it off to Ramitha for the building unity and leadership.
Yeah, so building unity and leadership among the poor and dispossessed. What does this mean? So the systems in place right now has resulted in 140 million poor and dispossessed people. When we talk about dispossessed, it's people who don't have agency in things that affect their lives. So a lot of times we've had a lot of discussions on some people are uncomfortable with the poor to be part of the poor people's campaign because they believe that they're not poor. But basically, if you there are people who can still have a house and still have health care and all of these things without working. And so I tell people to make that distinction of if you didn't have a job, would you still be able to have a home to live in, and would you still have health care? And would you still be able to live? And most people, even those who are living comfortably, aren't able to do that. And so for me, that's kind of what I think of when I hear poor and dispossessed. It's like, how much are you in control of your life if you didn't have a job? So we talk about the 140 poor and dispossessed today. At the time when the Poor People's Campaign started in 68, there were 100 million. Sorry, there was 40 million, which was 100 million more than we have today. And the system has its strength in dividing us, gets its strength in dividing us and keeping us divided. Therefore, we need to come together, uniting across these divides of race, economics, education, geography, ethnicity, and so on. And we know about all these divisions, right? When we come together across these divisions, we become an unsettling force that can exert our majority power and win when we demand systems that work for us. Because up to this point, the the rich who are in power and make the rules for them, they have been just going on, and they hasn't. While we have tried to push back against that, and we have made some strides in some way, but they're very, very small. And also often when they give us something, they're very quick to take it back. So this is a difficult struggle. In my group, we were talking a little bit about this. So it is important. So this quote, beginning in the new year, we will be recruiting 3,000 of the poorest citizens from 10 different urban and rural areas to initiate and lead a sustained massive direct action movement in Washington. So this was the first Occupy, I say, was with the Poor People's Campaign in Washington, D.C. And to understand this, when at the start of the Poor People's Campaign, Dr. King and other civil rights leaders worked with people who were either directly impacted or working with directly impacted people to try to understand what this thing was, what the system was, and how to change that. Um, so so this quote was from the very beginning of the Poor People's Campaign. Dr. King saw that uniting people is essential. It is still essential today. It is also important to build leadership among the poor and the dispossessed. And we need to build a large and passionate leadership to work so the work can go on regardless of obstacles, of fatigue, of setbacks. So when we're in a group, we're all working together. So today I have stuff to do. I cannot make it. I have a sick child, whatever. Someone else can step in and continue the work. So the work isn't compromised because we're all working together as a group. And we do this, to do this, we need to unite people by having events like this, community building, and other base building events, and spread the word of the work we are doing. So we develop leaders in the group through action and education. Hopefully you see value in what we are doing, the importance of the movement, and help us spread the word and join the movement to change the systems of racism, poverty, ecological devastation, militarism, and the nation's distorted morality. We all are leaders, and this is also a false narrative that's spread that in order to be a leader, you have to have certain training, you have to have certain experience. We all are in charge of our lives. We manage our lives. And so we need to bring that into the movement. So we all are leaders. We just need to find the role or what we can do or when we do things often enough, we feel a little bit more comfortable. And so we all need to find our place in the movement. So I will pass to Sylvia.
Thank you, Ramita. So the third strategy, and thank you for that segue, Ramita. Yes, we do have to come together because how else can we influence policies and elections? That's the third strategy, influence policy and elections. We have a bigger impact when there are more of us, and as the movement grows, as more folks organize. We bring our narratives to the elect conversations and policymakers, and then they have to engage with a deeper and more meaningful conversation. It's important because we're bringing the other side of the narrative, the shifted narrative. To me, that's the truth because, and the other is propaganda. That's not what it says here. That's what I'm saying. To policymakers and election and conversations about elections, so we can focus on the real problems, the systemic problems and struggles that the community is facing. So how can we do this? By educating everybody in the movement. Political education is very important. It's part of why I'm here. By taking our testimony and demands to elected officials, as we did in June of 2018, you're going to see a picture about that in a minute. And other times, we're educating people and helping them shift their perspective. At least we're letting them know there's an alternative narrative, and this is what we believe is needed. We're not going anywhere. We've done this with Congress during the presidential election debates. The topic of poverty was discussed with the Democratic presidential candidates. And we also do this at the local level. Seems like the local level is not important, so thank you, Ramita, for emphasizing that. The local level is very important, talking to your town, city meetings, gatherings where elected, excuse me, officials are present. And again, not handing them, excuse me, not handing them the microphone so they can say what they want, but listening to what we have to say. Oh, Pam, can I give you this slide? My throat is, my voice left.
Yes, absolutely. So this Moral Poverty Action Congress was a couple of years ago and shows just an action in DC when the representatives from the Poor People's Campaign met with Congress people. We've had a couple of marches in DC that come up, every year or two, but it just shows the coordination among other Poor People Campaign groups from other states and how we can empower those in the struggle to tell their stories and again shift the narrative and really engage with those local officials like Sylvia was just and Ramita were just mentioning. And then the next slide, I think, is Ramita.
Yeah, back to Ramita.
All right. So, well, okay. So the way the Poor People's Campaign is organized, so we have a national Poor People's Campaign. At the moment, where there has been some kind of shifts going on, and I think next week there's the national is meeting again with different states. But so when we started the Poor People's Campaign, there was a nonviolent action across, I think there were about 30, more than 30 states. That was in between Mother's Day and Father's Day in 2017, I believe. This was this new iteration of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. And so there were more than 30 plus states that were in that were doing that nonviolent action at state capitals. Since then, a couple more have joined. And so each state has tri-chairs. In New York State, our tri-chairs are Michael Marshall, who's on the call, Susan Cabina, whom you get all the newsletter, or you probably applied to get the Zoom link for this meeting, and then myself. So we are the tri-chairs. Wait, can you go back to that slide, Sylvia?
I put it on so people could see the faces of the tri-chairs.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead. Can you give us there's Michael
Michael
Marshall,
Marshall.
Reverend Michael Marshall, and Ramita, you have your camera on, yay. Hey, where did Susan go?
She's there.
Oh, there she is.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, I'll share again.
All right. So yeah, and then we're organized by region. So we have it might not all the regions are not as active as they used to be, but we would, so if they're not active, we would like to have region activity there. I think Buffalo, Western New York might need a little bit of love and care and connection there. We have the capital region, we have Central New York. That also Central New York might need a little bit more focus to bring people in. East and Southern Tier, we have the Hudson Valley, which we're also hoping to bring people together tonight after this call if some people are on. We have the Long Island group, we have the New York City group, we have the North Country where I am, and then we have the Rochester group where Michael Marshall is. So if we want to go to the next slide. So in our regions, so we have regional committees. This is where from my perspective, this is the best place to start. And here, this is local organizing with so your local group will know what's the best actions to do in your group. What does your community need? I was talking to Stephen in my group, and he was talking about the housing issues that they're having. So in that area, people might organize around housing. So we have, some of the things that we've organized around healthcare. Right now, there's the campaign for New York Health. We're still continuing to do that. I think across the state, we should be engaging in that healthcare, the New York Health Act and the campaign for New York Health. Then there's voting rights that we might want to focus on. I here in the North Country probably don't have as much need for voting rights action. Then there might be projects of survival and housing, like I said, housing for all. So that would be your local region. And then also we have, if you go to the next slide, I believe, Sylvia. So you can see on the top rectangle is the your local organizing, right? And then we have other so we have a coordinating committee where we have 2 or 3 people represented from each region, ideally who would be part of the coordinating committee. The coordinating committee is the decision-making body of the New York State Poor People's Campaign. So we have a lot of discussion about what we should be doing, what we should adopt, what is going on, how we can help and support each other. So we also have teams, supporting teams. Again, here, not all of these will be active. It depends on who's available and what their capacity is. At the moment, we have very minimal capacity. We're hoping that we could have more of these and people would really see the value of our work and join us so that we can be more robust than we are at the moment.
I have to shout out the media team. They're one of the
Right.
strongest meat teams right now, so they're hanging in there strong.
Right. So we have the media team. I'm just gonna go starting from the left, maybe media team, and go since Sylvia talked about the media team, and just go
Actually, Ramita,
counterclockwise.
because
Yeah.
a few of these are not
Okay.
active and we only have
Well, we have
2 minutes.
all. Okay. We're out of time. Oh my goodness. Yes, we're out of time. But we have all these teams. If you see some of these that are of interest to you, please reach out. We would love to continue this work. I think,
Yes.
and I think, am
The
I,
link tree.
yes, is this Pam doing this? I'm passing it to Pam. Or I don't know if you
No,
want to
I
do
don't
this.
think
You
do we
Yeah,
and
still have him? Oh, because she's
I
here.
can jump on here. Yeah. I actually just went to the link tree. There's a lot of really good information on here, a lot of um, events from the Poor People's Campaign, but other organizations that we partner with. So a lot of educational events. You can access our newsletter and they're archived there. So it's a really good site, kind of catch-all for great information, both locally in New York State as well as nationally. You can sign up for our emails so you can, you'll get those and stay up to date with what's going on.
We should tell people how to access the link tree. You go to www.nyspppc.org. That will put you on the link tree. I'll put that in the chat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you could put in the chat. Thank you, Susan.
Susan, I also see a link at the bottom of this slide.
Yeah.
Would that link work as well?
Yes, well, yeah, that link will work. That's what comes up when you type in nyspppc.org, which is easy to remember. It shows up as the link that's there.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
So the link tree does really make it easy for you to know what's going on. And you can save it to your favorites just for easy access. And like I said, sign up for the emails just to stay on top of, there is a lot going on. So it is a good place to, kind of catch all of that.
So these are our projects that we have going on now. Sharing this slide because it's one of my favorite slides. This will be our last one. One of the main strategies of the ruling class is to divide and conquer us that way, have people hating and blaming each other, so they're too distracted by fear and mistrust to see what's really going on and where the problems are really coming from. That strategy works so well that all they have to do is rinse and repeat and do it over and over again. It keeps us from joining forces and working together. So I really love this slide because it says, what worries me, Senator, is they're getting into step. If you could see that at the bottom. So that's what the Poor People's Campaign aims to do. We aim to get into step together and we ask that you join us. Ramita, you want the upcoming events?
Yeah, so we have a couple of upcoming events on I believe June 29th at 7:30 we have Reverend Kimberly who's going to speak to us on racism. And then following that in August we start a book discussion. We're going to be reading together How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. Um, we thought the book was too good to read alone and then
Mhm.
discuss later. So we're reading together and we're discussing this book as we read to get the most out of every word, phrase, and idea. We hope you can join us and are open to shifting your perspective. But this information will probably be on our link tree, which is the address is here, nyspppc.org.
If
And then
it's not
also
in, Ramita, if it's not in there separately, it is in the newsletter, which is
in
on
the
the link
newsletter.
tree.
Right. And then also, yeah, once you go to the link tree, you'll get all kinds of information. And I think on the link tree, there's also a space for you to sign up to get our newsletter and to get onto our email list. And then you'll get all the information of everything that's going on. Besides the local events that are happening, which will also be on the in the newsletter and also possibly on the link tree.